Well, hello. My name is Pastor Dennis. I am excited to be with you guys for today's Mililani Minute. And today we're going to be looking at the book of Jonah. We're going to go through some really interesting aspects of what happened when the storm arose and the response to that storm, both by the sailors and, of course, by Jonah as well. And the reason why we want to do this is we're looking at different ways to bring encouragement to you while you're at home. We want to encourage your family. We want to help you to think biblically about what is happening all around you. And we felt like yesterday was a good opportunity for Pastor Caleb to bring you some encouragement through the story of Jesus calming the storm. Today we're looking at Jonah. We'll have another message for you tomorrow as well. But let's get right into the text because there's a lot to discuss. Now, I'm not going to read the whole story, but I do want to just briefly read and then I'll summarize some extra points. But they said to one another, this is the sailors, they said to one another, "Come, let us cast lots so that we may know on whose account this evil has come upon us." Now they cast lots. The lot fell on Jonah. The captain went down to find Jonah asleep on the boat. He started to get upset with him and he said, on whose account is this happening? Who caused this? Why are you not going and worshiping your own God and calling out to your own God to make intercession or to stop this calamity, this tempest that has sprung up? And what Jonah did was he told them, "You're going to have to throw me overboard." Now the sailors, they decided, we're not going to do that. We're going to throw everything off except Jonah. We're going to reduce the weight and hopefully we can ride this out. It wasn't working. So they began to row as hard as they could, and it still wasn't working. And so what ended up happening was they finally decided to throw him overboard. And as they did this, something incredible happened. We know the story about the supernatural fish that came up and swallowed Jonah. We recognize that. But we also have to understand that the sailors saw this, and what did they do? They began to worship which God? They began to worship Jonah's God. They recognized that when that fish came up and swallowed Jonah and then the storm stopped, they recognized that Jonah's God is greater than their God. Now, why do we bring this story up? Why do we want to talk about this story? Well, just for practical purposes, there's a storm going on around us right now. Now, this storm is not brought on, I don't believe, by any one person's sin. And so there seems to be a tendency, though, sometimes to try to point fingers, try to place blame, try to figure out what in the world is happening. Why is this happening? How can we stop it? How can we fix it? There's a lot of questions like that being asked right now. The sailors on that boat, what did they do? They immediately began to point fingers. They began to cast lots and see who could this possibly be that's causing this for us and what can we do to remove this problem. So I think on one hand, sometimes there's storms that arise and we don't understand why they happen. So they began to seek out what might have caused it. Now, we as believers, we know that we live in a fallen world. We know that we struggle because of the effects of sin. And sometimes it's directly because of one person's sin. Sometimes it's because of multiple people's sin. Sometimes it's because of the original sin. And we just live in a fallen world. And so what we need to do is, as believers, have an answer for the hope that lies within us. We need to be able to explain what it means to have hope, what it means to respond to others, because that storm, not only did it redirect Jonah and get him back to where he was supposed to be, but it also helped those sailors who did not know God begin to worship God. At the end of chapter 1, we're told that they began to worship God. They offered a sacrifice to the Lord. They made vows to him. They recognized that he is truly God. So I ask you today, where are you in your walk with Christ? Is this storm causing you to redirect your path closer to him? Or is it helping you to realize we need to be more focused on We need to recognize who the true one living God is. I encourage you today, ask yourself those questions. Pray to God and ask Him to give you enlightenment, to give you wisdom, to give you discernment, to help you to keep moving forward. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you again tomorrow.